Hello everybody, my name is Saraphena COF, and for my claim of fact speech, my topic is legal drinking age, and my main proposition is that the legal drinking age is counterproductive. For my first premise, it is a higher drinking age encourages underage drinking, and for my second premise, it is that raising the legal drinking age has made things worse. And lastly, my third is that a majority of teens continue to consume alcohol. So to support my first premise, it is that alcohol is seen as like a forbidden fruit kind of thing. So to everyone under 21, and we all want what we can have, and this is a perfect example. If 18 were the legal drinking age, then younger people wouldn't feel the need kind of thing. And a good example of this would be that in Europe and several other countries, the drinking age is 16 and 18. And according to www.potsdam.edu, countries such as Cambodia, Cuba, Ghana, Jamaica, Morocco, Romania, Uruguay, and Vietnam have absolutely no limit. And it teaches children at a young age that everything in moderation is okay kind of thing. And for my second premise, to support that, according to Dr. Ruth Ames, professor at Applied Sciences, Health Sciences at Indiana University in Bloomington, state that like prohibition, raising the drinking age was much worse than doing nothing at all. And for those of you who don't know, prohibition was the prevention by law of manufacture and sale of alcohol in the United States between 1920 and 1933. Prohibition tended to destroy moderation and instead promoted great excess and abusive drinking. People tended to gulp alcohol in large quantities on the occasions when they could obtain it. And Dr. Ames continues with, what we currently have is an age-specific prohibition, and young people are forced to create speakeasies in dorm rooms and other secret locations where they too must gulp their alcohol in absence of moderating social control. And for those of you who also don't know, speakeasy is an establishment that illegally makes and sells alcohol. And so for my third premise, to support that, according to the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse, underage drinking accounts for 17.5% or $22.5 billion of consumer spending for alcohol in the U.S. By lowering the drinking age and making it normal in our society, it can be taught to be done responsibly in a controlled environment and would make it much less of a taboo. That is why I strongly disagree with the current legal drinking age and its counterproductive effects. And I hope you all will agree as well. Thank you.
All right, Seraphina, the proposition is clearly identified. There's an excellent layout of what the secondary structure is going to be, so we know what the premises are that you're going to be advancing. You signpost those as you get to them. You do seem to be rushing through your explanations on a number of these points, and I do think that you need to have a little bit more data on a couple of the points. On your first point, you're dependent on some comparisons to countries that certainly don't sound comparable to the United States. You list what their practices are, but I didn't hear any information about whether or not they have more or less frequent drinking or greater or fewer problems with drinking, whether the consumption levels, for instance, are different at different ages. I just had a list of 6 or 7 places where they have a different culture about what drinking involves in moderation and all things, but what has the result of that been? That's what you need to be telling us, that the result of that has been something that is much more positive, and I don't really hear any data that suggests that's more positive. It seems like you're making the inference there without providing the follow-up. On the second point, you're largely dependent on Dr. Ings to give you support on this point, and I think that you quoted Dr. Ings pretty effectively. It was clear that you had the complete quotes for the most part when you're citing that information. She's got an explanation of what her theory is. I do think that there's probably proof in her article or her book that talks about some of the statistical basis for the inferences that she's making, and it feels like I'm getting the conclusion of her argument without getting the proof that shows that her conclusion is a valid one. So we heard earlier somebody criticizing the idea of relying on authority as a source of information. I've heard Dr. Eng's name since 1998, so I know that she's one of those people that does this kind of research on these sorts of things. But like I said, I'm not getting any of the supporting information from the argument here that would tend to suggest that she's made an accurate inference here. So all I've got to go on is her credibility. And by the way, I think you need to give us a little bit more on what her background is if you're going to do that. On the last point, you're basically arguing that the consumption rates are high because the law is just not very effective. One of the things I don't understand is if it's forbidden fruit at 21, why is it not forbidden fruit at 18? So the 18, 19, and 20-year-olds will feel like, oh, I ought to get this. Why does it not become forbidden fruit for the 15, 16, 17-year-olds if the drinking age was lowered to 18? I think there has to be an explanation. It may have something to do with the culture. There may be some access issues or family issues that are related to that, but it's not very clearly explained. You used only, just a little under half of your time, so there's a lot of room to add things to make your argument a little bit more convincing. I do think that you do a nice job presenting for the most part, although it does sound sometimes like you're rushing. Not like you're Russian. That sounds a little bit different, Ski.